Yeah, 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 yeah. La.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Alena here with Mave and Allan Kreda. And today we have a very special guest, Ken Morrow, Olympic gold medalist from the Miracle on Ice and 4-time Stanley Cup champion with the Islanders. Welcome, guys. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Kenny, I worry about you. And the reason I worry about you is that every time I talk about anybody, I've been reading something the other day, a few days ago, and every single thing, the guys are saying, but we got Kenny Morrow back there. We don't have to worry about it. This guy can get deep. This guy, and we're not worried because Kenny Morrow. Did you ever make a mistake in your entire career?
Oh yeah. Thank goodness they didn't have ESPN, Sports Center back in those days. I have a lot of people fooled, Stan. So,
you know whose line? I don't know whether you borrowed it or you lent it to him. But after the team won the fourth in the Dynasty fourth Stanley Cup, somebody interviewed Bill Torrey, and his line was, "Well, we fooled a lot of people." How can you fool a lot of people when you win 19 straight playoff series? But that was a very good line, and it said a lot about Torrey because he was kind of a modest guy about all his. How'd you get along with him?
Good. He was the maybe the ultimate consummate general manager in that he surrounded himself with really good people and he managed people rather than managing the team, and he let those people do their job. So you go back to Jimmy Devellano and, Al Arbor, the coach, and all the scouts that they had, the front office people. He was I think the best that I've ever been around as far as managing people. Yeah.
Allan, you wrote a great book about Ken. And Ken, did anything in there surprise you reading it? That's the book, yeah.
The book? I was surprised by a lot of things.
Yeah.
And as I was chatting before with Alena, we didn't know anybody really about the gold medal team until you won the gold.
Yeah.
But it was the after Kenny talking about things about the Islanders, who I was watching my whole TV career, that I didn't know. And I felt that Kenny's personal insights were different from what I was seeing. Now, I know I told this story before, but I might as well tell it again, because I'm a hockey maven, but I'm actually a fraud when it comes to that. I fooled a lot of people. And the best example was Jiggs McDonald and I were watching the afternoon game, and Kenny made his debut at the Coliseum. And after the game, he comes down, he says, "So Stan, what'd you think of this guy Morrow?" And I said, "He just doesn't have it."
Yeah.
The Maven should be take the M off and just Haven.
Well, that was probably after I took my first penalty, which was just a few minutes into my first shift, I think. And so I can't blame you on that one, Stan.
6 days after the gold medal, I mean, there was a lot. Lot going on that week, as we talked about at length. I mean, suddenly from red, white, and blue to Islanders blue and orange. Dennis Potvin on your side, and matinee at Coliseum, Red Wings, and must have been surreal, right? I mean, we talked about the drama of such a week that had to be.
Well, and what I tell people, and again, all credit goes to Allan Kreda for bringing up the idea of writing a book, and to me, it just turned out to be such a much more enjoyable experience than I was expecting. At first I said, "What did I get myself into?" But it really gave me a chance to look back on my career, on my life, and something I really hadn't done in depth. And so, you asked about any surprising stories. Yeah, there were a lot of them in the process of writing the book. one came up in the Netflix documentary about the 80 team, with the letter that I found from Coach Herb Brooks, which was pretty amazing to find this letter and read it over again. And then the story about Jimmy Devellano, I had never heard that before, how he had an off night in Toronto and he was out scouting and he just happened to look at the local schedule to find some hockey game to go to, and it happened to be our college team playing the University of Toronto. And that was his first time he'd seen me play. And he said he jotted my name down just as maybe some interest at some point. And lo and behold, that's how I ended up with the Islanders.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and I can never, every time I write about it, which was about 2 days ago, how this could happen. So there's this guy, Mike Bossy, winds up being maybe the greatest natural goal scorer of all time. How do the Rangers, with 2 picks ahead, forget? How do all these more than a dozen people who supposedly know about hockey pass on Bossy? I don't understand how that happened. How did it happen? I don't know.
The story I've always heard was that they had, back in those days, all the scouts would go to the draft and they would actually sit in a big room, for 2 or 3 days and fight over players and everything before the draft. And Saraceno was his name. I can't think of his first name, but Mario, his son, is Harry Saraceno, stood up and fought for Mike Bossy, overtaking other players. And as you mentioned, Stan, there are a lot of teams that passed on Mike Bossy, but in those days you had to have a scout that would fight for you in those meetings. And thank God he did, because as you said, Stan, he was the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Well, I've always said I'm so happy that the Rangers passed on him once and twice. They picked Eberlois
and Ron Duguay,
and then Duguay. Yeah.
Pat LaFontaine told me a story about Mike Bossy practicing one-timers, and he was able to, the puck could be on edge, and he was able to figure out a way to shoot it on edge to get through the 5-hole in not the width, but the narrow. I mean, yes. Who practices that? But he did. And he
never missed the net. The one thing that was amazing is he never missed the net. And the other thing in writing the book, and talking with Allan about our practices, and I've heard John Tonelli talk about, when you're out there, you're practicing more than you're playing as an NHL player. And so you're out there and I'm practicing against Mike Bossy, and Mike Bossy is practicing against Dennis Podman. So you're practicing against the best in the world, basically, which makes you a better player. And I remember with Brian Trache, Mike Bossy in particular, when we would do a drill, a 2-on-1 drill or whatever, they would come down, and normally in a drill, they'd come down and get a shot away, and then everybody would peel off into the corner and the next wave would come down. Those two would stay out there. Even if the goalie made a save or two on that drill, they would make a point of staying there, pass the puck back and forth, and finally putting it in the net. So they finished every drill with putting the puck in the net, almost like they were imprinting that, that puck's going to end up in the net somehow. And I think that's what makes them great players.
What about the book now in its second year? What kind of reactions do you get from people who are going to read it or who will read it? It's been into a second printing, am I correct?
Yes, the softcover came out in October, so there's a second fresh wave. We updated it with the lottery winning just about almost a year ago now, Ken Morrow's latest miracle, and our visit to Lake Placid in June with Ken and the book. So it's had a double life, a double season now. For me, the reaction's been amazing. The layers of people that have loved hearing the backstories, the stories from Ken's teammates, opponents, coaches' families, the Herb Brooks family, like everyone's in the mix with telling stories within Ken's story, and those people from all teams that I've met and made sure the book has been seen by players who have read it now. Anders Lee, his parents loved it because they always were asking me about how was it when the Rangers played the Islanders in the 80s. Like, it's had a tangential web of effect for me and all the teams and people I've seen over the course of 2 seasons now. So, and then of course the players themselves, the Islander legends, the 1980 legends, one after the other have told me at one point or another how much they enjoyed Ken's story and hearing it, because he didn't speak a lot, and now here's his story. So it's been sort of a triple revelation on those levels, and it means a lot to me for those players, those people to recognize how much they liked it, because I know I did a good job if they're happy with it, because it's their story I've been trying to tell, and Ken's legacy I want to forward. So that was my goal from day one, and I hope that's been accomplished. I think it has.
And Stan, for me, maybe the greatest part of it all was having yourself write the afterword and Dennis Podven writing the foreword, and then all the players that Allan was able to reach out to and get quotes from them, guys I played against, guys I played with. I never expected that, so that to me made the book so much more worthwhile.
Who was your favorite team, and who was your first favorite player in the NHL when you were growing up, when you were young? I grew up in Michigan, and so everybody thinks I was a Red Wing fan. But if people remember back in the 70s, and the Red Wings were not a good team. I'll put it that way. I used to watch their games. The games I got on TV were the Red Wings and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you really couldn't find any other teams on TV at that time where I lived. So between those two teams, but to me, the player that I probably was most impressed with, and if you want to say, I didn't idolize anybody, but I still say he's the greatest player. No disrespect to Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe, but Bobby Orr for me was the greatest player I ever saw, and so I got to see him play once in person. Back in the mid 70s, and that kind of stuck with me. Although I didn't pattern my game after him, Stan.
I'll just add the bonus of the book for me is having my name, Ken Morrow, Stan Fischler, Dennis Potvin, sharing my name on the cover with those three legends is epic.
Yes.
Well, did you call me a legend? Is that what you called me?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you, guys and gal, how to become a legend. Do you know how to become a legend? All you have to do is be old.
Well, you're a legend when I met you, so no.
Because if you're old, you saw things that nobody else saw.
Yeah.
I was telling a couple of American hockey players now about you, Ken. Last week, we had guys whose relatives played on the U.S. Coast Guard Cutters hockey team, 42, 43, 43, 44, at the Old Garden in the Eastern League. And 43, I was 11 years old. I was really becoming into it. But these guys look at the Islanders as a team to look up to playing now. On the Cutters team, there were Hall of Famers. Frankie Brimsick, one of the all-time greats, the Hall of Famer with the Bruins and also Chicago. And Rangers had Art Coulter, who was captain of the 40 Cup winning team. And it was a marvelous thing because they were pure Americana. They wore star-spangled uniforms. And the best thing about it was that they were the best team in the country for their level. They won the championship in 43 and 44. What am I saying? So it's this American feeling that hockey has really grown in our country. And what I'm getting at is I was reading a book about guys who had retired, NHL guys who had retired, and one of them was Tommy Williams. Tommy Williams was one of the first Americans to succeed in the NHL after World War II. And he was telling in the story, he was just saying about how difficult it was. He was American playing in the NHL for the Bruins. Wow, what kind of strange person are you? But you know, in hockey, if you really want to dig into Americana hockey, in 1938, the Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. They had 8 American-born players on that team,
Wow.
including the goalie, Mike Caracas, mostly guys from Minnesota. And I don't know, was Michigan in the country at that time? I forget. No, nothing against Michigan, but Minnesota was like the big hockey place. And for the Chicago Blackhawks, well, let me put it this way. When the owner of the Blackhawks, Colonel McLaughlin, in 1947, said that he was going to get as many Americans on his team as he could, Lester Patrick, the great patriarch of the Rangers, wanted to throw him out of the league. He didn't want America. He thought having Americans on the team was an insult to the NHL. So all they did was win the Stanley Cup, and they won the Stanley Cup by beating, you should excuse the expression, Alena, the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's interesting because people forget America's place in hockey. The first artificial ice rink indoors was not built in Canada, it was built in Pittsburgh. The first professional hockey league was not in Canada, it was in northern Michigan. Did you know there was a northern Michigan?
No, I didn't. Wow.
Well, it was right on the border. It was right on the border with Canada, as so many of these towns were, Sault Ste. Marie being a good example.
Yeah.
But the professional hockey league was in America, okay? And that's, I'm done with the soapbox. I turn it over to you.
Well, keep telling these stories, Stan, because I love hearing them.
Ken, I have a question about the Miracle on Ice. I was born in Russia, so I grew up hearing the other side of that story. So what do you remember most about facing that Soviet team in the Olympics?
Well, just, people ask me how intimidating they were. And when you use the word intimidation, you always think of the Philadelphia Flyers or fighting, that part of hockey. But they were intimidating in a different sense in that they won, they beat everybody they played. And so stepping on the ice with this team, there was an intimidation there just in how good they were and how dominant they were. And so that was something that, Herb Brooks had worked with our team throughout the year in getting us into a mindset that, we had to take these guys who were way up here on a pedestal and kind of bring them down and kind of close that gap to where, he talked to us all year. This is without even knowing if we would play them in the Olympics. We wouldn't have played them at all had we not made it into the medal round. And so making it in the medal round, but he had prepared us all year long about talking about, these guys, they're not as good as everybody says they are, and they're not playing well. And, they're getting away from their system. And so he was planting that seed in our mind that, hey, we deserve to be on the ice with these guys. And I think, it was something that was a big part of what we were able to do in Lake Placid.
What was it like facing Tretiak?
Well, he was, widely considered to be the best goalie in the world at that time. And, they would come over and play against the NHL All-Stars. And they would win a lot of those games. So yeah, he was, his training, when you see old film of him back in those days, training kind of what a lot of the goalies are doing nowadays. So they were so far ahead of what we were doing at that time with their training and the way they were playing their systems. And so what makes everything that Herb Brooks did so remarkable is that he took a lot of that and incorporated it into our team, all within a 5-month period. And so it was like a learning process for all of us. Not only were we conditioning and preparing and playing a lot of games, but we were also changing the way we played the game. And so I give so much credit to our coach for sticking with that and giving us a chance to pull off that great upset.
I appreciate that personally. That is Herbie and what you guys did, because I would say about 4 years or so before the 1980 Olympics, at the Garden, I'm talking about the old Madison Square Garden, which was there until I guess whatever it is,
68. The first,
yeah.
the original was 68.
Yeah, so this is in the mid-'60s, and we had doubleheaders. The Rovers were the Rangers farm team, and they played at 3:30, and the pregame was a Met League game. But Tommy Lockhart, who ran the Eastern League and the Rovers, he was great with international hockey, and he brought over a Russian team. I'll never forget this. And they came out, they were going to play the Rovers. And they came out, and it was like, what the heck is going on here? These guys were doing things that I never would have dreamt of in a practice. It was like, you guys come down from Mars? What is it? And it was totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. I won't even go into it, but it was not what we were used to seeing. And not only that, we didn't know whether these guys were so good to be able to take that kind of practicing and put it into the ice. And of course we did.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Herb Brooks. So he was famously strict about being clean shaven, but you were the only player allowed to keep your beard. Did you ever feel like the team's outlaw for that?
I had it described by one. I did an interview just last year, and his comment was, you had these bunch of 22-year-old fresh-faced kids, and then there was Ken Morrow, who looked like their dad. And so the beard story, truthfully, I had no idea that it would even be a story 40 years later. But Herb was asked many years after 1980 why I was allowed to keep the beard, and I never knew the story until I heard Herb tell it, that he said that he did have a rule, no beards, but he said he wanted me to be able to keep the beard because I had it when I came to our tryouts. And so he said he changed his rule to be that anybody who had a beard at tryouts could keep it, and I was the only one that did out of 80 guys. So a little finagling with the rules, I guess. But Herb was that type of coach. He treated everybody differently. He was hard on some guys, really hard. And then other guys he kind of left alone. I was one of those guys. He knew I wasn't going to respond to, telling me I had to shave the beard or whatever. So he just let me, the way I describe it, our relationship was Herb kind of let me do my thing, within the team structure. And he never really got on me too much. And there were other guys, he was on them all the time. But Herb had that ability to know what buttons and how hard he could push each individual player, and he got the best out of everybody.
Yeah, but you were in one of the greatest games ever played. Rangers, Islanders. You were in the Islanders. You scored that winning goal, broke their hearts. when did you see Herbie after that game? Did you see him at all? Because you devastated the Rangers and him.
Well,
You ever see him?
I think Allan too. I think Allan kind of was. He was. I love the great story that Allan tells of that day that we were playing the Rangers. He was riding his bike, I think, right home to try and catch the overtime.
At a friend's house after the third period, theorizing I had an early exam, organic chemistry, the next morning, ridiculous. And I didn't want to risk a triple overtime and then getting home at 2 a.m. So I strategized if I left right after Don Maloney's tying goal, get home in time for the overtime. And I was listening to the game on my Sony Walkman in the streets of Brooklyn on my Raleigh 10-speed. And that's how I heard the goal. The goal was scored practically the moment I got home.
And I think he probably cursed me out at that point because he grew up a Ranger fan. But you asked Stan, I don't remember meeting Herb. I may have said something to him if I did run into him after the game. But Herbie, he even kept a distance at that time. He really kept a distance when he was coaching the team. He didn't interact with the players much other than on the ice and in the locker room. And my one regret, having watched the end of the game and the handshake line, my one regret was that I didn't go down and shake his hand. I know a lot of our players did. I was totally oblivious to the fact that he was on the ice down in the corner. And I wish I would have been able to go over and thank him for everything he did for my career. That goal, I've relived it many, many times and watched it many, many times. And just so many things, what I will call fate, that's one thing the book brought out to me, maybe more than anything, are all these things that happened in my life, in my hockey life, that I can look back and say fate. I call it the hockey gods, and for me to be able to score that goal on my 50-mile-an-hour slap shot. I've upgraded it from 48 mile per hour to 50 mile per hour. So, if you're ever going to score a goal, scoring against your biggest rival is one that you want to score.
Well, it had a knuckleball quality about it. I don't know if I ever told you people that I was in a very, very annoying situation, because when the overtime came, I was working in the studio right near the Ranger dressing room, and I was attached to the studio.
Yeah, right.
And when after Maloney tied the game, which was a phony goal, we all know, but it doesn't matter, things happen. Two guys just they barged into the studio near the end of the third period. One was Nicky Fatiu, who was a dear buddy of mine, and the other was Barry Beck. The problem was, what the hell are these two Rangers doing in the Islander studio? I decided that it wouldn't be prudent or appropriate for me to grab Beck and throw him the hell out.
Those are two big guys.
Yeah, and I was a midget compared to them. But I mean, they're in the room rooting, and thank God you saw that.
Well, hey, I tell people, if you watch the whole game, the Rangers played one heck of a game, and I think they outplayed us that game. But we were like the typical, heavyweight champion on the ropes late in his career, and I think they had us on the ropes in that game, several times, and we were able to hang in there. And then Tommy Janssen scores that goal halfway through the third period. And we were just hanging on, basically, trying to get to the end. And I felt terrible. I was on the ice for that Don Maloney goal, and I took a lot of pride in, being out on the ice in the last minute of a game, trying to protect the lead. And so when that goal happened, and then they almost, I don't know if people realize, there were only 30 seconds left, and they almost scored again, like with about 5 or 6 seconds to go. They had a really good chance. And how crushing would that have been, to get scored on that late and lose the game. And then Billy Smith makes the huge save on Bob Brook. 99 out of 100 of those chances probably go in. That's how good of a chance Bob Brook had there. And Billy just made a calm, cool save on that, and then the puck goes down the other way.
I asked Tom Maloney also at one point, I said, was it a goal or not? He said, well, of course it was a goal when I scored it, but later when I was Islanders GM, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I that episode that I just told you about with Nicky Fatiu and Barry Beck was like basic training for me, because there was another series in which the Edmonton Oilers, the big shot bragging Oilers, now the fourth game, and as we remember, Isles got 3 quickies or whatever, and then the Oilers got 2 in the second period, and now it's the third period, and it was the same situation. Me and my tech guy in the studio, and we're doing a whole, come on, we got to win this game, because we hated the Oilers. We hated the Oilers even more than the Rangers, because they were brackets and whatever. And, the Islanders won 3 straight cups, and these guys are walking around and never won a damn thing. And so now, listen to this. So now it's the third period. We got a 1-goal lead. And who walks into the studio?
Nick Fatiu.
What?
Nick Fatiu walked in.
Don't ad-lib my script. So who walks in but Tommy Murray, who became a very, very good. He was the new editor of the Hockey News, which I had been writing for, but he was a Ranger fan, and that made him an Oiler fan. And the other guy who walked in was Don Wall, who then was the new publisher of the Hockey News. And I had to live out that third period with them with some degree of decorum, which I never had. And when you, Morrow, you got that goal, I think I went more nuts on that open net goal, right? Open net, right? Open net goal.
Oh, yeah.
So what I wanted to do, I'm going to do now. I'm going to give you a long distance hug for that goal.
I'll take it, Stan.
Nice.
Well, I think, first of all, from hearing your conversation, you needed to lock your door, Might have kept all those guys out.
To do more than that.
Another thing that the book, Allan came up with all these great statistics that I never knew. And he told me that I'm the only player in NHL history to have 2 empty net goals in a Stanley Cup final series, which is that right, Allan?
Go ahead in game 1 of that series, and then 2 out of 4. Only player in history to do that in the same series in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, how bizarre is that? But both those goals, the one in game 1 where Billy Smith stood on his head, best goaltending performance I've ever seen in my lifetime was Billy Smith in game 1. And I scored an empty net goal, and it went right into the middle of the net. I shot it just as I got over the red line. If you watch the replay of it, right in the middle of the net. The one in game 4 that you're talking about, Stan, right in the middle of the net. I don't know what it was. It wasn't one of these off the post and in or anything like that. And I couldn't tell you how or why. It wasn't anything you practiced or anything. But I guess my eyes must have been this big when I saw no goalie in the net.
Let me help you out, Ken. Let me help you out, okay? You tell me you want to know why. This goes back to all other big ones against the Kings and whatever. It's simple. You were great. That's what it's all about. There's nothing lucky. There's no luck. It's one after another, and it's just greatness, okay?
Well,
I want you to remember that.
I appreciate that.
Lesson today.
I again, fate for me, you know, being drafted by the New York Islanders. You know, what if I'd have been drafted by the Hartford Whalers or something like that? You know, I think back and I go, what would my career have been like if I'm playing in Hartford or somewhere like that? So you know, just to me, it was just a lot of very fortunate things. And Allan and I talk to this day, you know, about all the funny thing, you know, the 1980 thing that keeps popping up, Allan, and the draft lottery last year. You know, it's just I keep saying to myself, why are all these good things happening? But it's been so much fun for me. Yeah.
The horse in Saratoga 2 summers ago.
Oh, that's a great story.
I went there one day. I finally got to Saratoga racetrack with my wife. We wouldn't know really who to bet. I hadn't been following any of the horses, so I texted Ken. I said, let's pick one. He's like, just pick 3 or 6 in the next race, whatever it is. I look at the program. Number 3 is It's a Miracle. That's the horse. It was funny, but I put $5 to win on It's a Miracle, and it won going away by 7 lengths. So how do you explain that?
Kenny, what was your wife's role in terms of being your support? In terms of, would she get very nervous or what? Tell us.
I appreciate that question, Stan. I've done so many interviews, and I don't know that I've ever been asked that, but she was a big part of it because we met in college. I was a freshman. Here's this big, tall, goofy-looking guy in college, and I met her, and we ended up. Here's another story: is that Herb Brooks let me stay behind. We got married on August 31st, 1979. So our Olympic team had our tryouts, and then we were making our first trip over to Europe, the infamous skating in the dark trip with our team. And Herb Brooks let me stay behind for a couple days to get married. And so we got married. The Olympic team flew over to Europe, and my wife and I spent our honeymoon night in in her grandma's apartment in East Liverpool, Ohio. That was our honeymoon. And then I was on a plane flying over to meet the team over in Europe a day later. And then we got back from Europe, and Barb, my wife, and I packed up the car, drove up to Minnesota. That's where we were going to be staying for the next 6 months with the Olympic team. That was our home base in Minneapolis. So that was the story. And she was there in Lake Placid, you know, with my mom. She got to see that. She got to see me play throughout my college career. And then she was there at all the Islander games. So she's been as big a part of my hockey career as anybody.
Awesome.
Ken, I heard that there's no better feeling than winning your very first Stanley Cup. How does it feel after winning the second, the third?
I know. Just the fact that you're able to compare cups. You know, there's so many great players that never get a chance to play for one, let alone win one. The first one you'll always remember. And I had my head down trying to catch my breath in that overtime against Philadelphia. And I didn't even see Bobby Nystrom's goal, but I heard the roar of the crowd. I leapt over the boards and right into Brian Trotier's arms. A photo I'll never forget. I have a great photo of us. And then I think all the players will tell you the fourth one that Stan talked about with Edmonton. They were so cocky. They were great but cocky. And we didn't want anything more than to beat that team. And, that year, again, another story from the book is that we played them 7 times that year. We swept them 4 games in the playoffs in the finals, but in the 3 games during the season, we also beat them all 3 games. So we played that Edmonton team 7 times that year. We were 7-0 against them. So if there's any doubt about how great that Islander team was, that should tell you right there. But yeah, I think the fourth one might have been the most, I don't know how you want to describe it, the most rewarding maybe. You always remember the first, but the fourth one, I think, had so much more meaning to it because of a lot of people thought that Edmonton was going to beat us and they were the new kid on the block. So I think that one is the one that we all remember the most maybe.
I kind of entered as an observer, working for the TV side, but being an impassionate fan. I remember going into the 1980 Philly series, being typically Fischler pessimistic about it, knowing that the Flyers had a wonderful team. They set
Oh,
a
yeah.
record. They set a record that season, and I was absolutely thrilled beyond words when Denny Potvin scored that power play goal in the first game to seal it. Kind of changed things. And the second year was different in that even though we had a wonderful team going for our second cup, we're playing Minnesota. And I had to find something scary about every single team. And they had some good young guys.
Yeah, they did.
Guys. And when we were up 3-0, believe it or not, when Minnie won that one game, I was worried. What are these guys? I get cocky or whatever. So when
Yes.
when it came back to the Coliseum, you wrapped them up like an old flounder. Wow, that was some. that was a nice win. Now the third one, this was legitimately scary, and anything I've read about it minimized the scariness about the Vancouver.
Right.
The reason why I was worried about them, scared, was they had a couple of crazy players who I remember when the Islanders lost to Toronto in the 78 playoffs with a wonderful team. And Tiger Williams in particular annoyed me times 1,000,
Yep.
and they had a good goalie.
Yeah.
His name happened to be Brodeur, and he was playing goal like Marty played. So that first game at Nassau, my oldest son Ben was with me, and that game was scary.
It was.
I said to Ben, I don't like the way these Canucks are playing. I thought they were, and but again, there was also somebody on that team would come through, and it was Bossy.
Oh my
But
God.
it didn't look good. And even as there was, I keep thinking of Tiger Williams going to do something nasty, but the great thing about Bossy, in terms of that series, was he scored a goal that was better than any other goal, including the Bobby Orr goal, which I consider a phony, because Bobby Orr was tripped and he went up in the air, and it was against a very weak St. Louis team. But it was a great picture. Nothing to take away from Bobby Orr. But Bossy scored a goal in air. I could have sworn he had a helicopter thing going around because. And
he was parallel to the ice when he shot that. Yeah.
What did he do after the game in the dressing room? Did he take out the helicopter rotors? Bossy, what a guy. And the whole team, I always go back to that Dynasty and I say, my guy, and I'm glad that you guys got him into the book, because overlooked by just about everybody. Gordy Lane loved him, and you did too. I remember you wrote.
Oh, I sure did. Yeah.
Several nice things, many nice things, and he deserved. But he was mostly overlooked.
Yes.
And that taught me, Kenny, that you really know your hockey.
Well, I can tell you, you talk about all those series and how you never feel comfortable, even if you have a 3-0 lead. I to this day, when I'm watching the playoffs, even today, and I see teams that have 3-0 leads in series, I realize how fragile that is as a player. You never feel comfortable. And I know the media will say, they're going to take them out in 4, they're going to take them out in 5. The media is always so confident, but as a player,
he doesn't know. Allan knows.
Yes.
Allan knows I invented the dreaded 3-goal lead.
Yes.
Yes. Think about it all the time. And then
And you can look back at series, and there can always be one thing that can happen in one particular game that can totally flip a series around. And so I never, we talked about this in the book, I never felt comfortable when you look back 40 years later and you say, well, they swept this team, they knocked them out 5. You know, it looks on paper, it looks easy. I can tell you it's nowhere near as easy. And the hardest games are sometimes those ones when you do have a 3-1 lead in a series or whatever. The hardest games are those ones to finish it off. I never felt good about any of those series. Truthfully.
Well,
analysis of your goal in Game 4 against Edmonton. Dennis said he confiscated the puck like a minute, like a half a second, and he had the fear. Gretzky was right behind him. Something happened. It was that fear, and then he looked over, and there you were. But you lose that game. Who knows? Going back to Edmonton, tied it, wins in overtime. Who knows? And so I mean that's where we started the book. Was that I said let's pick a cup here and start with the winning game of a cup here, and that 83 jumped out, and that led to the I Love You story, which I once you told that story, I knew we had something because you scored the empty net goal and the group hug. Nystrom and Tonelli and Dennis and Trache and I love you guys. You could see you.
That's my favorite moment. Yeah, I learned this from the book. My favorite moment that I remember from my years playing was that hug. After scoring that goal, the relief of not having to go back and play this team again because they were that dangerous. Not having to make that trip to Edmonton, and I was such a quiet guy. And when we all hugged there after the puck went in. It just came out like it wasn't. I said, I love you guys. I love you guys. I repeated it like 3 or 4 times, and I think it spoke to just how we felt about each other. Yeah.
That Nystrom says he's still upset you didn't pass the puck over, so he could have.
Yeah. I love that.
Kenny, you're from a baseball family. Your father was a very good baseball player.
Yeah.
But I got the dreaded 3-goal lead expression through baseball.
Okay.
And like Allan, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and we had a team there called the Brooklyn Dodgers. And we never won a pennant from 1920 until 1941. And now we're playing the hated Yankees in the World Series. And the series was 2-1 for the Yankees, and now we're at Ebbets Field. I don't know whether you know what happened, but the Dodgers were winning by 2 in the top of the 9th, 2 out, and Tommy Henrik gets up for the Yankees, and Hugh Casey, who's the best reliever in the National League, pitches 2 strikes on this guy, right?
Oh.
And he strikes him out. Game over, right? No, it was a pass ball. Mickey Owen, the catcher, missed it. Henrik gets on first.
Oh, wow.
And Leo DeRocha later admitted his biggest mistake was not going out and calming Casey, because Casey was a very temperamental guy. He couldn't wait to pitch again, couldn't calm down. And who do you think comes up next? It was not little Johnny Jones, it was Joe DiMaggio. And Joe killed us Brooklynites all. And the Yankees wound up winning on a 3rd strike, and they won the series. That's how I get into the dreaded 3-goal. Never think you got it until you got it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that story. Wow.
I'll tell you something. A follow-up on that story. I did a book on all New York hockey. It was called Metro Ice. And we had the opening at Yogi Berra's museum. Now, Yogi was very into hockey because his best friend was the owner of the Devils, Dr. McMullen. They were like this, I mean, they were the 2 of the great people I've met. So at this opening for my book at the Yogi Museum in Jersey, I naturally got there early to make sure everything's hunky-dory. Then about 2 hours before we were supposed to start, I'm looking around, who walks up but Yogi. So I know Yogi very well from Dr. McMullen, and I see we got a little time to schmooze, and I said, by the way, Yogi, I must tell you that I covered Game 7 in 1956, because this was after the Dodgers had won their first series, and I covered the game. This is Game 7, and Yogi, I got to tell you, I was rooting for Brooklyn because I'm from Brooklyn, and the start of the game, Don Newcomb is pitching for us, and Yogi puts it out of the park. I think they got 3 runs in the first inning, and then in the third inning, Yogi again demolishes Newcomb. He's out of the game.
Wow.
So now it's 6-0, and it wound up being 9-0 for the Yankees. And so there I'm sitting there with Yogi, and I said, Yogi, I got to tell you something. I covered that game, okay, 56, and I have to tell you, I'm a Brooklynite, and I love the Dodgers. I said, Yogi, what you did to us in that game broke my heart. That's what you did. You broke the heart, Yogi, of 2 million Brooklynites. And he looks up at me, and on the short hop, he says, you know, Stan, I'm still not sorry. Never forget. I'm still sorry. We never forget those things.
Yeah.
Watching the playoffs right now, what do you think? Who is gonna take it all? Any predictions, Ken?
Oh my gosh! I think anybody that tells you they know what's going to happen in the playoffs is out of their mind. I know everybody loves to make predictions, but no, the one thing I will say, the Dallas-Minnesota series, they're 2 really evenly matched great teams. Before the series, that was the only one I felt like Dallas might end up taking that series. A lot of people are picking Minnesota, and I could be proven wrong. I've been wrong many times before. But there's just something about Dallas. I've watched them. They've overcome injuries throughout the season. They went on some great runs throughout the season. And I think they're the deepest team for me that I've seen in the league this year, as far as they've got guys that can step in if they have any issues. They can change their lineup. They've got 7 or 8 defensemen. They've got 4 lines. So if I'm going to make any prediction on any series, I would say I think Dallas may win that one. I guess we'll wait and see.
So who are you getting?
I think Carolina, to me, is the team that should come out of the East. But again, they've got to overcome some disappointing playoff getting knocked out in the last few years when they've had really good teams. So other than that, boy, I don't know. It's fun to watch. That's all I can say.
It's been pleasantly surprising to see the Ducks take a 2-1 lead over the Oilers.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm rooting hard for the Ducks. I don't.
Yeah.
I put something up today, not too long ago. I was reading this guy covers Edmonton for the one of the wire services, Sportsnet. Very good. Spector is his name. But I'm reading the story, and there's this thing. I think McDavid is playing hurt.
Yeah.
So I see that, and I wrote a note. I said, how come whenever Edmonton loses, this guy McDavid looks hurt? So I got a storm of nastiness from the Edmonton fans, which is what I love. That's what I wanted.
Here's a moment from the past. Gretzky.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
1985, I think. It was in my archive. So there was some like for the Oilers, right, Stan? Some.
One of the great one, and also one of the
yeah.
greatest people.
Yes.
These guys, that's the wonderful thing you have to say about people, with the possible exception of the Rangers, that these guys are all great guys. And of course, I'm kidding about the Rangers because I broke in with them and working for them in 54, 55. But hockey players are wonderful. They're the best, just the best.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's been proven over and over again with the book too. Just the legacy stories, the appreciation, the sort of common theme. Like, doesn't matter where a family's from, where anybody grew up, Sweden, Finland, Saskatchewan, Minnesota. Like, it's the same genetic pool of families and uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters and parents. And I think everyone can appreciate Ken's story because it's the story of that. It's the dedication, the perseverance, the hard work, the effort, the family around you, and the teammates. Like, it just self-fulfilling every generation. That's the best part.
I have to say that the best part, talking as a journalist and an author, you guys, I don't know how you did it, but you had good chemistry. But the way the book is constructed with sidebars, all relevant, and it made it very easy to read. Very easy to read, but easy is not the good word. It made it, okay, I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest hockey books I've ever read.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's Allan. And he blew me away, Allan, with all these. And I know the work that went into it, of reaching out to guys, digging up phone numbers and talking to people in the press box. And
that's the essence. That's the roots of its greatness. The way you guys got all kinds of facts and put it in exactly the right places.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Open up to Allan? Well, I mean, you cannot say no to that face. But
I have a way of getting to people, like getting to their emotional place quickly, and I think I've earned trust over the years too, certainly with the alumni. And I definitely learned this from Stan when I was 21 years old. Like, make it personal, make it human, make the connection, tell a joke, like do something to make them remember you when they first meet you. Like, all these things, I learned that watching Stan with the gigantic board of phone numbers and the phone calls that would come in and the jokes he would tell and the conversations on the phone about not hockey. And just, I kept this with me, and I feel like it's all personal, and people remember, players remember you met them at the draft, that you met their dad at the draft. The dad remembers when he sees you 25 years later or 15. Players remember Henrik Lundqvist, rookie. Henrik Lundqvist now is the same guy. Like, it's a self-fulfilling. So I use that idea with the book, reaching out, because I also have this memory for dates, numbers, games, plays. So you ask a question about some obscure moment, a player may not even remember that in detail, and then we get going. So that's where the stories kept coming from. Ron Duguay tells me this story. Mike Ruzioni tells me that story about the 72 Camaro, out of a conversation that led, all these vignettes that mean something, because it's that kernel of one thing that could lead to a whole story. Also learned from Stan back in the day. So the legend, I understood what it meant to be a legend in the business, because you were that back then. Even here's another relic, 40 years, the Brooklyn College Sports Hall of Fame, 1986. So you were a legend then too, and I do it. So this is meaningful stuff, to bring it all around in a book like this, to share legacies of two great teams, two great dynasty groups. Epic for me in the career. It's definitely personal achievement, journalistically, for me. I'm so proud.
And I'll back all that up, Stan. We talked a lot about you in the process of writing the book, and I can tell you that Allan, how much of a mentor you've been to him, and how much of an influence you've been on his career. It was a real pleasure working with Allan, and we've become really good friends since doing the book.
Yes.
I know we're close to closing, and I want to ask a question, and then I want to tell you a personal story instead of a joke, because a guy my age, 94, has to remember his favorite goal, which I will tell you. But my granddaughter has a lot of talent, And I would like for you, Kenny, to tell me one bit of advice as she moves along the hockey ladder. Just one bit of advice, and I will be, I'll be talking to her in a day or two, maybe tonight.
Yeah. Boy, you're making me think about, there's so many things, but I think the one thing is maybe a couple things. I always wanted to be on the ice, and I know it's maybe a little harder nowadays. I used to be, I guess, what you'd call a rink rat growing up, never knowing I'd ever go on and play any kind of meaningful hockey later in my life. But I just wanted to be on the ice. I had that passion from when I was a young kid. The first time I stepped on the ice, it was all I wanted to do. And so I think just getting on the ice as much as you can, whether it's public skating, whether it's going for pickup games, whatever. Everything is so structured nowadays. You're on the ice at a certain time, you're off. The coaches have whistles. I'm a big believer in pond hockey, getting out there, being creative. I'm really stressing that with all the kids around here. Whenever I do go in and help with the youth hockey here, it's like, get on the ice, go out, get away from the coaches with the whistles, let the creative juices flow, and just get on the ice. That would be my one piece of advice.
You got the right gal for that, because this is the way she is. So I must tell you, I started playing on a team, Woodside Whippets, in 1947, roller hockey. And it was the first time I was on any team. And these were great guys. I was not from Queens, I was from Brooklyn, but they loved, they embraced me. And right down to the very last game of the season, where they were winning this game, and they knew they were going to win this game, and they tried to set me up for a goal. About 10 minutes of the last period, didn't happen. And so my first year, I didn't know what it was like to score a goal. Then a couple of years went by, and I wound up a team from Brooklyn called the Wizards, and my dear buddy, who is still around, my buddy Carl Klickman, we were playing. We had our own rink. It was a Catholic schoolyard that had a surface that was like ice. It was the greatest. And it was about 3/4 of the way through the season. I was on defense. Never forget this, of course. Never forget it. I don't know how, why it happened, but I was on the right defense. And for some reason, I went forward up to the enemy zone. And I guess I got a little bit past what would be the center line. And all of a sudden, it was like came from heaven, but it was a guy named Jerry Berger. He was a grease monkey who worked in his father's garage, and he always came about 10 minutes late in the morning, and he wore his grease monkey suit, Jerry Berger. So anyhow, this guy somehow passes. It was a lateral pass from left to right. I was in the right side, and I didn't know what a one-timer was. In fact, there was no such thing as a one-timer.
Yeah.
But I took a one-timer, and it went up. And the goals that we made our own goals, were burlap. And I could still see the puck hitting the burlap, and I went berserk. That's the only goal I ever scored in 94 years. That should be in the Hall of Fame of tape. Electrical tape, goal, Hall of Fame.
Where's the puck?
Puck. It's in my head. That's
into the burlap. I love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Hey, gotta go. Thank you. Great to see you. And remember, none of those goals were an accident. Great, Great, buddy.
Thank you, Alena. Great seeing you, Allan.
Allan, Ken, we really appreciate you both joining us. And to everyone watching and listening, make sure you're following, subscribing, get a copy of the book on Amazon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.